Don's Wife, Chapter 6, Part 5. For Harsh, too, his new life was not exactly a straight and simple love story. It was a lot of adjustment, a lot of giving up, a lot of sharing, and above all, a lot of bridge building. All being the virtues he never had a good fortune of knowing, much less experiencing. But he was determined to try to make his marriage a success, Kamini being his only anchor, his only hope. Kamini returned to India in early October, reinvigorated and committed to exploring new avenues, new directions, and new goals for not only her husband and herself, but also and especially for her father-in-law. RD was truly happy witnessing this new dimension in her. For the first time after Champa's passing away, he felt secure and not so lonely. Although she put up in the new house which had been acquired for Harsh and her to live independently, it did not worry him or create any anxiety in him. Being a man of the soil, he had the native wisdom to maintain a healthy space between himself and even his closest kin in the interests of establishing a strong, dependable, and everlasting bond. He was full of optimism now, his concern being only to educate and, if possible, induct Kamini into as much as possible of his ever-ground and legitimate businesses, which were pretty big in volume and spread widely. To his joy, Kamini turned out to be a keen pupil. For her secret pledge in response to her parents' behavior, she wanted to see that RD's life turned a new page soon. She was a fast learner too. RD was amazed at her grasping power. He could see that she was putting her heart and mind into the assignments she was entrusted with. This indeed was a far cry from his experience with his own son. Reticence, reluctance, reproach, and rejection were most often the 4 R's, 4 responses he had got whenever he had tried to draw Harsh even into his respectable and legitimate enterprises. At the same time, for her inherent positivity, Kamini was consistently and judiciously working towards building bridges and cementing the relationship between the father and the son. And her efforts were bringing results. As Harsh pursued his studies at the King's College in London, the chasm between them considerably narrowed and an in absentia bond was being formed between the two. Both also understood and in their hearts genuinely appreciated the invaluable contribution Kamini had made in making theirs a truly nuclear and cohesive family. She, of course, also had another secret admirer, a well-wisher, and an integral part of her life in Jamuna, who now lived with her, minded her household, and was a dependable repository of every bit of information about her, shared in earnest and in entirety. By the time Harsh returned after completing his first semester, Kamini had acquired almost a complete grip over her father-in-law's overground legal businesses. However, she had firmly declined from assuming any commanding position in any of them, despite heavy persuasion by both her husband and her father-in-law. She had acquiesced only to accept very small notional shares like any senior employee would be favored with, much less than what even Bhau was assigned. But it was RD's core business of underground operations which was becoming a challenge to pull away from for its humongous size, vastly complicated network, and some of the most volatile, egocentric, and selfish operatives. People had begun to sense RD's subtle moves of going soft and his attempts at discreet withdrawal, which many were privately unhappy about and even resented implicitly as it disturbed the equilibrium. He was a tough man. His street fighter's skills hadn't quite deserted him yet, but still, he had been, of late, having moments of self-doubt, low morale, and even loneliness. His oasis in these moments was Kamini's house and her food. They were a happy trio during Harsh's winter vacation, watching a lot of films together on the home theater, experimenting with all kinds of cooking, and even foraying into music, trying to play musical instruments with bizarre results, especially for Ardi, who could only attempt to beat his fingers on a table, of course, totally non synchronously. They also traveled together to various cities and towns in India, wherever RD's investments were based, both for sightseeing and stock taking. Most of these trips were arranged discreetly and without any pre planning for the sake of security. Time passed very fast, and it was nearly springtime. Harsh was looking forward to beginning his new semester as he had been very happy with his studies at the King's. Kamini had already sat her exams and she expected to get good results too. It was the most wonderful Holi they had together as a family. For Kamini had appropriately chosen this auspicious occasion to let out her big secret to both father and son. She had missed out on her second month as well and was definitely in the family way. This time Ardi did not hold back jubilation to save any embarrassment to the Sates, as they were neither in the country and nor was there any contract between them and Kamini any longer. Revelry continued for all the 3 days of Holi till the night of Harsh's and Kamini's departure for London, where they were going to set up house as planned. Ardi was a fulfilled man. All his desires and longings were coming to fruition. He was genuinely happy and at the same time sad as the moment for them to leave arrived. He hated partings in public. Hence, he had decided against accompanying them to the airport. But it was not an easy goodbye to say at the house either. He kept on remembering things to say or to give to his son and daughter-in-law each time he bid them goodbye. Then his tears were infectious too. Kamini and Harsh carried them in their eyes, even as they were in the car, well on their way to the airport. And they kept thinking, why did he behave different today? As they descended the domestic airport flyover in Santa Cruz and took the side road to pass under the Andheri flyover for catching the road to the international airport, a car came up parallel to theirs. Its back window went down. It was Bhau. Harsh wondered, why did he jump the escort car? He looked shaken and pointed them to pull over. Harsh's driver abided. Bhau almost dived for their car as soon as they stopped. He quickly went round to Kamini's side and slipped in beside her. Before Harsh could say anything, he rattled a nervous order to the driver. Don't go under the bridge. Drive left from the lights and get into some deserted alley. Sensing some serious trouble, the driver immediately pressed the pedal. It being the middle of the night, luckily there was not much traffic on the road. Ignoring the red light, he turned left at the signal. His tires made a loud screeching sound as he swerved. Bhau had by now withdrawn his gun and he gave panicky orders to both the security man on the front passenger seat and the driver, who was already racing down on the road heading for the Andheri station. Unlock your pistol and be alert. And you also take out your pistol with one hand, hold the steering by the other. Harsh and Kamini were completely flabbergasted and totally out of their depths. Bhau, what is happening? Harsh squeaked nervously as he took a quick, questioning look at the three men. Take that lane. Ignoring Harsh, Bhav addressed the driver with urgency. That lane. The one we are approaching. That would be safe. As the driver followed the instructions, dodging two slow-moving vehicles on the road, Bhav addressed Harsh. I'll tell you. Don't panic, I'll tell you. The speedy car again took a screeching swirl as it ploughed into the narrow lane on the left, leading into a poorly lit small yard, which was surrounded by the backs of ordinary middle-class buildings on three sides. The car took a 180-degree circle through all the rubbish and discarded objects dumped in the yard to face the opening from which it had entered and stopped. Lights off, ordered Bhav in a suppressed but urgent tone. The driver obliged. Bhav, what is going on? My flight. Harsh was panicking. There is time. The flight is 2.5 hours late, we have found out. You don't panic. I'll tell you everything, he said while actually panicking himself. Then he spoke into his cell phone. Yes, but you have told him now. He would be bringing it right here, now. And your car is right outside for cover. Good. Wait, I can see a car entering. Just then a car crept into the mouth of the yard from where they had entered. Bhav spoke into the cell again. It's the same car, sure? You have told him the signal now? Yes, he is signaling. The newly arrived car had flashed its full lights twice. Bhav ordered the driver while still retaining the cell to his ear. You also flash your lights twice. The driver did as told. The other car flashed again, though only once. Then it began to move and taking a 180-degree turn, just as they had done, came and stopped parallel to their own car. All the while, Bhav's grip had tightened on his gun, just as that of the security guard and the drivers on theirs. Bhav spoke on the cell. Yes, it's right here. I'll go into it now. Right? Right. He opened the door and instructed Harsh and Kamini. You wait here. Let me go and check. And without waiting for their answer, he took long and firm steps to the other car with his gun still drawn. He opened its back door and quickly exchanged some mumbled words with the man inside. He then stepped away and turning towards Harsh and Kamini's car, he beckoned them to come out and hurry into the other car. Like earlier, the three of them again got into the back seat and the security man into the seat beside the driver, all the time keeping their guns drawn. The car lunged forward and sped off the mouth of the yard and swirled a screechy turning onto the main road. In less than 3 minutes, they were inside a tabela in Jogeshri East. At least 2 more cars had arrived and taken positions outside the tabela near the railway tracks. Another car had discreetly parked itself down the lane. All the cars had gunmen with their weapons drawn. Bhav and the group which was with him in the car stood still in the middle of the braying cattle. A young lad came running to him from outside with a bundle in hand. He grabbed it and ripped open the paper cover to reveal 2 or 3 pieces of clothing. He hurriedly picked the black cloth, which was a burqa, and giving it to Kamini said, Put it on quickly. There. He pointed at a small wooden cabin a few feet above the ground in a far corner. There was a small iron staircase to reach it. Then he turned to Harsh and offering him the other pieces of clothing, said urgently, You put this kurta pajama on, and also this is skull cap. I'll get you a pair of glasses with neutral power too. Later. Be quick. They did not move, just gawked at him, wondering what had happened. What are you looking at? Go! We have no time! He almost screamed at them. What the hell is happening, Bhav? Why are you not telling us anything? And we have a flight to catch too, Harsh retorted. That's precisely what I'm trying to do, to get you to the airport safely. He recoiled angrily at first and then quickly softened. Looking at their stunned faces, Please go and change quickly. I'm coming in 3 minutes. I'll explain everything. Sensing some serious trouble, they moved to the cabin reluctantly, though hurriedly. The cabin had a partition, hence they changed pretty fast. But they were intrigued by Bhau's strange and evasive behavior. He didn't seem himself. As Bhau climbed up the steps to the cabin, Kamini confronted him. Bhau, I have changed, but I am not going anywhere till you tell me what has happened. He did not say anything, just froze in his place, looking at the ground. Harsh and Kamini were astonished. She dared him. Bhau, you are not even looking at me. What has happened? She screamed, fearing the worst. Suddenly, with a jolt, he turned to them and, turn by turn, looked directly in their eyes. His eyes had anger, frustration, pain, desperation, fear, and fury, all at once in that instant that he met their eyes. And then his voice cracked as he spoke, like an anguished and repressed soul. Why does he do it to me? Why? Why me? His voice choked and tears shimmered in his eyes. What? Who does what to you? Said Harsh, confused with what Bhau had said. Raja Sahib. He had the grief and the grouse in his eyes as he stuttered. For forcing me to put you on the flight at such a time. He was crying. What do you mean, at such a time? What has happened? Harsh was shocked and suspicious. Has something happened to Dad? In answer, Bhau broke into sobs. Kamini was even more suspicious as she demanded, even as cracking herself. Bhau, what has happened to the Dad? Bhau still did not answer. Harsh shook him and said, Bhau, you are not answering. What has happened to the Dad? Kamini's mouth fell open as fear gripped her, and she asked softly, though dreading the answer. Is he dead? Bhau broke down. No, but perhaps he would be by now. And he wants me out to put you both on the flight. The world collapsed around them. Kamini staggered back and dropped onto a wooden divan which was right behind her, while Harsh's jaw fell open and would not shut as he stared at Bhau in disbelief, his eyes wide with shock. Bhau was now howling as he complained like a little child, flailing his arms at nothing in particular. Look at his cruelty! He forces me to swear that I will do it. Send you away and not even tell you. This is what he gives me after so many years. Cruel, heartless man. He was speaking disjointedly in between sobs and fresh bouts of tears. Harsh, his mouth still open, dropped on his knees. As if locked in a spell, his eyes didn't blink even as his gaze slowly shifted to the ground. Kamini spoke at last, but she felt as if it was not she, but somebody else who had asked the question. How? When did it happen? She was barely audible. Like an aircraft shaking in stormy weather, Bhau quaked and spoke amidst his tears. There were 5 of them. Came only a few minutes after you left. They had hijacked one of our vehicles and taken 2 of our chaps hostage, forced them to drive. That's why the guards didn't stop them at the gate. They shot down the driver Taj and the other chap Lakshman as soon as they stepped into the porch. Bars right in. Raja Sahib had sat for meditation in the puja room. They caught him right there. He burst into quick, silent spurts of fresh crying, unable to speak for some time. As his sobs subsided somewhat, he said in a strained voice, with fear lurking in his eyes, They had sent another squad for both of you too. But since you suddenly chose to go by our place, they missed you. We too killed two of them and caught one alive. There was a stunned silence for a few moments. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Then Kamini sprang up in panic and asked, "Where is Dad?" "In a small private hospital in Santa Cruz. A trusted one. We didn't want to take him to a big hospital." Harsh, who seemed to be out of his bearing, got up and uttered, What what do we do now?" Bhau's eyes flooded with tears again, as he said resignedly to nobody in particular, "Let's do as he ordered. You two should leave. It's not going to be easy here now. Rivers of blood will be flowing everywhere." Harsh and Kamini looked up and gawked at him. Suddenly he was grim. With a sweep of the back of his arm, he wiped his tears and said in a soft but commanding voice, "We have no time. I'll go and tell the boys to be ready. We'll leave in 2 minutes." He took a quick, pained and searching look at both of them and swung to leave. The loud thump of his feet as he went down the steps conveyed that he was back in control. Harsh, who seemed to be nailed to his place, now turned to face Kamini. "Now, what? What do you mean now? What? What do we do? What do we do? What do you mean, what do we do?" She sounded surprised and enraged. Harsh suddenly turned away and barged into the other section behind the partition, saying, "I have my semester. I have to join the college." Kamini was stunned. She waited a few seconds and regained her composure. Then she followed him into the other section. "You have to join your college? Are you in your senses, Harsh?" She was horrified and challenged him angrily. "Do you know what you are saying?" "Yes, I am in my senses. Yes, I know what I am saying," he screamed, and then started rattling like a persecuted man while going round and round, evading to face her. All my fucking life, I have tried to get away from this maddening world, which I am not part of, never wanted to be a part of, and now, when I am getting a chance to do what I truly want to do, you want me to throw it away just like that. Blow it up." She was stunned and stared at him dumbfounded. He whirled and said almost savagely, "Look, I want just a simple life. I want to pursue education. I want to be an engineer. Please don't ruin it for me." "And what about your father, who has just been killed?" she asked softly, shaken by his shocking statement. He froze in his place, unable to say anything for a moment. Then he looked at her steadily and said in a soft, cold voice, "Did he not want the same thing? Did he not ask how to? But he is now dead, and you are his son, his only son." She shrieked with fire in her eyes. He stood still with no word in him, not a hint of any movement. He could be a block of stone. She was astounded. This could not be the man she loved, so selfish, so utterly self-centered. Suddenly she sprung at him and, grabbing the collar of his kurta, spewed poison at him. "Look, I won't let you turn your back on your father, even if I have to shoot you myself." Perhaps some spell was broken. All of a sudden, he collapsed on his knees and grabbed her by the waist. Locking both his arms around her and burying his face in her lap, he let go. A dam was burst. He howled, going into spasms and spasms of unstoppable crying while mumbling, save me, come on, save me from myself." She kneeled down too and put her arms around him comfortingly. She kissed him on his eyes and began wiping his tears with the portion of the burqa and said soothingly, "Don't worry, baby. I am with you. We are together. As Bhau came up again, Harsh told him calmly but firmly, "Let's go, Bhau. Let's go and meet Dad." Bhau turned to look at Kamini. She smiled feebly at him and wore a brightness in her eyes as she nodded silently. He understood everything, and his own brightness returned. End of chapter 6, part 5.